Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Um, my name is Namrata Pandey, and I'm a counselor with Neerja Modi School, Jaipur. Uh, I have a panel here. I'm the moderator, and we're going to talk about global destinations. Now, this is mainly for counselors who just an overview. So, if you've got a lot of experience, maybe this is not going to be for you. But I have a very uh, nice panel with me. Thank you so much, the panel, to agreeing to be part of this. Uh, Let me introduce them one by one. Mr. Ashish Suri, he's from University of Waikato in New Zealand. Can you just raise your hand and wave? Yeah. Ms. Grace Lloyd, she's from Grinnell College, US. Ms. Soumya Pandey, University of Limerick, Ireland, in country. Samreen Khan, University of Sheffield, uh, in country. And Megha Srivastav, York University, Canada. I know there are some countries missing, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer because I've worked in all countries. I've had students attend all university destinations. So, there's a lot of talk about students studying in India, going overseas. We wanted to keep this panel to help you understand how do you advise students about which country is best fit for them, because of course there's a country fit first and then a university fit. So how do we get to understand which country one should send their student to? And for that, I thought it was best that we talk about what each one of the countries that we have here have an offer for you for your students. So I'm going to start with, you know, getting you to first understand the education system of that particular country. Do they have a national curriculum? What kind of subjects? Is there a restriction to the subjects that they offer as to high school students? Because if you understand that restriction, will you be able to understand how we from India can understand? It's that whole thing. If you don't understand the education system of a country and how many years it takes to graduate, all of that. So I'll start with you, Ashish. Is there a national curriculum at New Zealand, and what exactly is that?
Thank you, Kiora. That's the word we always start with New Zealand, kind of welcoming all of you for the session. When it comes to New Zealand, it's one of those emerging destinations quite away from the mainstream. But as a destination, we have a qualification framework which is known as the New Zealand Qualification Framework. And you'll be very surprised to know that we were one of the first in the world to have that qualification framework for the secondary schools as well. Now, when we look at New Zealand and students are looking out for secondary schools, then they need to have an understanding of level 1 till level 3. That's the base where they create in. And all these qualifications which we talk about, I'm not very sure. Is the voice clear? Because there's a lot of, yeah, there's a lot of background noise. Yeah, I think this is much better. I can even talk without a mic if that works for all of you. I think that's better. And there's a lot of background noise. Okay, I can talk without mic if that works. Is it better? But still, this noise is still around. I'm not very sure. But if you can hear us better, uh, I think we can. I can just talk around with the. So I think since we are looking at New Zealand and we're talking, representing that destination, the qualification framework that we use is the New Zealand qualification framework, which is very much imbibed from
True.
And when we talk about, it's okay. I can take it later. It's okay. If all of you can hear me better, then I can just switch to mic later. Okay, cool. So sorry. Okay. So so at the level 7 to level 10 is where we talk about the bachelor's, postgrad, and the higher research degrees. And that's how simple the qualification framework in the destination is. So if you're coming in from an school counselor perspective and your students are looking at secondary school education in New Zealand, they're picking up doing a course at the NCA, which is known as the National Certificate of Achievement of Excellence in New Zealand, and they need to have level 1 to 3. And you all will be very happy to know that NCA levels are accepted across worldwide. So if students completing that level are looking even to come back to India and study within Indian university, it's recognized with AIU as well. If they're looking to go overseas to US or to Europe or to Germany, to UK, that as well. So it's a very strong qualification framework which works in the destination. For the secondary schools, it's NCA, and all of them are imbibed into the New Zealand qualification framework, which is between level 1 to level 10. Thank you.
That was really exhaustive. Thank you so much. Grace, would you like to explain the US high school system?
Sure. So I'll briefly go over the US high school system. It's not a national curriculum in the same sense as some other countries because in the United States, it's often less of a career preparatory program at the high school or secondary level. There is something called a Common Core that you might hear about in the United States, where there are classes that are taught pretty regularly across that all students will have exposure to language arts, mathematics, the sciences, history, that sort of thing. But it's a little different in that it's not a required set list of courses that students have to be taking. There's also a lot of flexibility when it comes to the high school curriculum. So some students will choose to take electives. Students that are wanting to challenge themselves have the opportunity to take IBs, APs, or PSO courses that are basically more intensive. There's also honors curriculums that some institutions, some high school and secondary schools in the United States will also be offering. So there are different levels for students to challenge themselves based on where they are in a certain department. So for example, if a student proves that they are able to take AP Calculus BC and they're in 10th grade, even though that's earlier than other students might typically be taking that curriculum, they might be able to test out. And then in the United States, a lot of institutions recognize the rigor of some of the AP, IBs, and especially the test scores that students achieve within those courses and might award credit for students that have those. And that's not just in the United States that they'll award that credit, but based on certain test scores, that's something that institutions in the United States, undergraduate, will often award credit for. And then the other different thing is the US really emphasizes the idea of soft skills being taught in the high school and secondary school curriculum. So, for example, oftentimes you'll find that extracurricular activities are funded by the institution, whether it's sports or the arts, and they try to create ways for students to have extracurricular output for their interests, for their passions, and be able to develop soft skills in communication, or be able to also create different groups and clubs and organizations at the high school level. So there is oftentimes funding at the high school level in the United States to support that. Yeah, thank you.
Soumya, Ireland, please. Yeah.
Yeah. So in Ireland, there is a national curriculum, and from the age of 5, the student goes into primary education. After which they go into a post-primary phase, which is what I'll be talking to you about. So in the post-primary phase, there are two levels. There's a junior cycle and a senior cycle. Now, if I draw a parallel to the Indian education system, your junior cycle would be your class 10 CBSE examination. It's for 2 years, and then students after the in that 10th year, at the end of that, they have to give an examination, which is called the JCPA. And in the senior cycle, there are 3 routes that students can take. Again, drawing a parallel, we have streams like sciences, arts, and humanities, and your commerce stream. But over here, it's a little bit more applied and looking into the future for the students. So, for example, we have a vocational certificate examination. Those will have technical skills and vocational subjects. The first one, the most important one, is the established leaving certificate, and that's what gets students into Irish institutions or any other institution in all over the world. So that's the main one that most high schools in Ireland would be offering. And the third one is a 3-year program, and that offers a transition year where students are allowed to work during high school. So that gives you an internship experience, and then they directly go in and start working after class 12.
Hi everyone. So UK is one of the most upcoming destinations, obviously one of the students' favorite, really multicultural, and very simple to understand. In terms of education, it's divided into 4 sectors. So primary education, secondary education, further education, and higher education. So most importantly, secondary education is from key stages year 5 to 11, 16. Where basically it's the most important part is the GCSEs. So in the GCSEs, it's equivalent to year 10 here of India. So you take up core subjects like maths, English, and science. And then there are foundation subjects like computing, PE, and citizenships. And later you can also choose an optional module as well. The other, if you go on to further A levels, which is the advanced level A, you cover at least 40 subjects over 2 years, but you can take up to 3 or more subjects. There are 40 subjects to choose from. Moving on from higher education, where college you enter the college degree, there is an NQF framework. So level 6 is equals to the bachelor's degree, level 7 to the postgraduate, and level 8 towards the PhDs. So you can take up monthly subjects, and in order to enter the universities, you should have obviously the A levels, the BTECs, or the GNVQs, or we also accept obviously IB diplomas as well. Now there's IBDP and IBCP, which I think we talked about in one of the sessions yesterday. IBCP is not yet common in India. I think Indus School Pune has been able to, is the first one to have the IBCP curriculum. It's more career focused. Rather than, it's an additional career focused subject. So universities in the UK will accept it, but on case by case basis. So that's just a gist. There's a lot of different entry criterias and framework, because I'm just talking about England, but there's Wales and there's obviously Scotland as well.
Thanks, Samreen. So the education system in Canada, it's divided into 3 levels. So you have the primary level, you have the secondary level, and you also have a post-secondary level. The primary level, basically also known as the tertiary level, consists of starting from grade 1, it goes up to grade 8th. And we are looking at an age group of, anywhere between 6 to 7 years, going up to 13 to 14. The secondary level, which we also call as the high school level, that basically consists of grades from grade 9th to 12th. So an age group of 14 to 15 going up to 17 to 18. Then we have the post-secondary level, wherein students either get into Canadian universities or colleges. Your universities would provide you with proper 4-year undergrad degrees. These are basically academic and professional degrees, also masters and your PhDs. The colleges would provide you with diplomas and certificates, and the duration is anywhere between 1 to 3 years. So that's like the division of how it kind of like looks like. Now, talking about the school system in Canada, when you look at it, education is compulsory. It's also free from an age of 6 going up to 18. The other thing is that all matters of education come under the provincial governments and the territorial governments. So we don't have, answering your question, Namrata, we don't have a national curriculum, and like anything pertaining to education, whether that's the funding, whether that's the assessment, whether that's accreditation, whether that's designing and establishing a curriculum, it would come under the provincial or the territorial government. Now, there are two types of schools in Canada. You have the public schools and you have the private schools. 95% of the Canadians, send their students to the public school. Yeah, and only 5% send them to the private schools. Public schools are schools that are again managed by the provincial and the territorial governments that are there. They are allowed to employ only teachers that have a government license. They have a standard curriculum. When it comes to private schools, an interesting question that we get, then why private schools? So, like I said, only 5% of the students get enrolled in these schools. So parents also believe that the private schools have like smaller classroom sizes. There are more academic options available. So that's about the different types of schools. Now, curriculum, like I said, we don't have a national curriculum. Every province, every territory has the responsibility to establish and design their own curriculums. There is a lot of focus in Canada about certain things like making students understand the real-time world issues. There's a lot of focus on the students should have, critical thinking skills. There's again a lot of emphasis on future careers. So that's where the focus basically goes in. The content, the curriculum is extremely relevant. It's very engaging, and there are a lot of opportunities just like the other destinations have. So a bit about the curriculum as to how it kind of like looks like. So I think I've kind of like covered most of it. Namrata, is there's anything that I want to add in?
I think one thing that really actually stood out, and I think all of you should know, is that New Zealand, US, Ireland, it's 12 years or 13? Okay. And Canada have a high school system of 12 years like India, class 1 to class 12. UK, however, has a high school system of 13 years. And Ireland, if you want to extend that 1 year, as Samya mentioned, could be 13 years. So when you're applying, getting students to apply, you have to know that, okay, this country has 13 years of education and we are coming with 12 years. So certain colleges in, certain universities in UK have an issue with admitting Indian students with an Indian curriculum, just one actually. But still, you should know, okay? Also, there is this new, declaration or something that has been signed by our Prime Minister and their Prime Minister. And there would be some changes in the higher education scenario. So keep your eyes and ears open. We could see some more recognitions happening and things, coming on. But yes, you have. Yes. IB and Cambridge, it does not matter. Yes, yes. If your student is an A-level student or an IB student, this does not matter. But if it is a CBSC, ISC, or a state board students, this may matter. And entry requirements may slightly be different. Now, moving on, I would like each one of you to answer, what is the duration of your courses, like a higher education course, if you have a Bachelor of Arts. So let's go with Bachelor of Arts, a Bachelor of Science, a Bachelor BBA degree, very popular, and a Bachelor of Engineering degree. What is the duration of your undergraduate degree in these 4 disciplines?
Thank you. So when it comes to New Zealand, the undergraduate degrees, specific those streams she said, which is for Bachelors of Arts, Business, Psychology, or Sciences, these are 3-year undergraduate degrees at the universities. The good thing with the destination is we are a niche one. So we just have 8 universities in the country and all 8 are public universities. So that gives a lot of advantage for students to pursue a qualification with universities which are ranked even amongst the top 3% in the world as well, and very strong in the research led as well. So all undergrad degrees except engineering or medicine, which could be engineering could go up to 4.5 years, whereas medicine could go up to 6 years as well. Rest all of the qualifications at New Zealand universities are 3 years. They could be interdisciplinary as well. So students could pick up a bachelor's of arts with psychology, but if they're very keen to do something in music or sports science, they could do that as well. We, as a destination, we have something which also leads to honors qualification. So some of you would want to do a bachelor's of management studies honors or bachelor's of arts in honors. An additional year is added to the undergraduate degree, which ensures your first 3 years is absolutely focused on learning at the university, which could be subject based learning, reflective learning, and even an internship component. And your final year will be completely a research led year. So you will, in the honors qualification, you will have a conversation with your, like one of your faculty members, or depending on the department you are pursuing your qualification, to have a further conversation. And your final year would be a mentor year of research led by, which also helps a lot of students who could jump into a master's qualification as well if they finish their 4 year of undergrad as well. Okay. One quick one around the, apart from engineering, which is 4.5 years, and the engineering degrees at New Zealand are recognized in most of the countries in the world. So if students at some point of time are looking for their higher education overseas or looking to go somewhere else to pursue their master's program, it's recognized globally, so they can jump on to do their next level of qualification across any of the universities in the world as well.
Yeah, I definitely have the most expertise in Bachelor of Arts, but the big thing to know is that in the United States, undergraduate education is typically a 4 year program. Some students, depending on, again, the credits that they transfer in, might be able to complete their bachelor's degree in shorter time. So it could be 3 years, it could be 3.5 years. Typically, institutions like students to stay the full 4 years if they can, but with that credit transfer process, some students will be able to skip out. And then the other thing also is that there are programs at a lot of institutions that will offer dual degree. So ways for students to be able to get a Bachelor of Arts and a Bachelor of Engineering. So for example, at my institution, there's a 3+2 program in engineering. So students get a Bachelor of Arts from Grinnell College in whatever discipline they choose to major in, but then they transfer to another institution and in 2 years also get a Bachelor of Engineering in another field, so at another institution. So it's very it's very dependent on the student, what they're searching for from that experience. But again, typically 4 years is the length of the degree of the program. I also just really quickly want to mention that in the United States, the types of curriculums can be very different at schools. There are some schools that do quarter systems where there are 4 semesters and you have to be on campus for 3 out of 4 in a year. There are some schools that do trimesters. There are some schools that do semesters, some that do semesters with a May term or a J term. This is getting really confusing. But the point is that institutions in the United States, because partially they don't have the same pre-professional focus, they generally do try to give students breadth across the curriculum, even outside of the liberal arts curriculum. Even at large public R1 institutions, there's still a little flexibility. And so there is just a wide variety of ways to complete that program. But again, typically 4 years of an undergraduate program in the United States.
And when Grace said schools, she meant universities in our minds here. So yeah.
So typically in Ireland, every university is going to offer you a 3 year bachelor's degree. It could be arts, engineering, sciences, or your BBA. Like Ashish said, we're a very saturated market. We have 9 universities, 10 institutes of technology, and 12 colleges that are private colleges. So there's not a lot of competition, I would say. But also, usually in Ireland, when an institution makes a decision to do something, all the higher education institutions sit down and deliberate on it. So there will not be one university offering you something very different from the other. We're very general. All of the places, just rankings are up and down, location differences, and of course faculty differences. In our university, at the University of Limerick, all our programs are 4-year degrees, because we have a compulsory cooperative education program, which happens to take place in the 3rd year. So the students are studying for 3 years, but in the 3rd year, it's compulsory for every student to go out into the industry and work for about 6 to 8 months. And we actually run the largest cooperative education program in Europe. And that's why we see a lot of undergrad students coming towards Limerick in the most recent years, because this is something that's just suddenly been brought to light that it's been happening. But other universities do offer this, but not for all programs. So students can either opt for a semester abroad that will basically take up the entire 3rd year or half of it, but they will still graduate after 4 years. And there are many other universities that do offer, for a particular program only, they'll offer a cooperative education program.
Thank you, Soumya. So, unlike New Zealand and Ireland, UK have a lot of universities to offer. So, we have more than 150 universities which are public, and a couple of them are private universities. Now, we also have around 260 plus colleges. But obviously, a lot of international students focus on going to do their undergrad from a recognized university. Typically, like Ireland, our degrees are also 3 years. In Scotland, the undergraduate degrees are for 4 years. And that is why it's easier to go to US, because they require 16 years of education. Whereas in the UK, we offer 3-year degree. Now there are BA, BSc, BEng. We don't have something called BTech as of India. The BBA is equivalent to the 3 years of BA of Business Management or BSc Business Management. You can add a placement tier. A lot of universities offer a guaranteed placement tier, modern rank universities. Most Russell Group universities, like for example us at Sheffield, we give you an option whether you can opt it during the UCAS process, mostly science and engineering courses, or you can add a placement year after the first year of your degree or beginning of the second year. Typically, the placement year takes place after the second year. We also have something called study abroad year option. So degree can be 3 years, but in the second year, you can study abroad. One of the partner universities which the university has. At Sheffield, we partner with 70 universities across the globe. You can also have the option to make it integrated course. That is 3 plus 1 years. So typically, science and engineering students during UCAS selection, they can opt for a MEng or a BEng program. Or you can also make it 4 or 5-year degree with a placement year. So, for example, a BEng aeronautical science, aeronautical engineering with a placement year would be 4 years, or an MEng with a placement year would be 5 years. So there's a lot of flexibility in terms of those. But unlike the US, we don't offer a lot of dual degree honors. We don't have major minors mixed. There's some pre-combined honors, for example, economics with philosophy, economics with mathematics, business with mathematics, but you can't pick and choose your own modules or degrees. They're preset at a university, a very limited number. Also, just a quick thing, because we get a lot asked by students about the second year entry or the final year entry. So a lot of universities in the UK may accept a second year entry, or they evaluate and give you a first year entry still. However, getting a third year entry is almost close to impossible. And most of the UK universities in UK will accept applications via UCAS, which is the Undergraduate College Admission Services, which is equivalent to the Common App of US. Whereas some modern rank universities may have direct applications also. So it's very important as a counselor to see which universities offering applications via UCAS or direct, so you don't waste the 5 choices of UCAS.
Thanks, Samreen. So in Canada, again, just like the UK, students have a plethora of options to choose for when it comes to post-secondary institutions. We have close to about 250 plus private and public colleges, and 200 plus public and private universities. So there are a lot of options in terms of institutions. Also, when you look at the programs, on an average, a university in Canada would offer you 100 plus programs. Like at my university, we offer 200 plus academic programs. So there is a wide range of options that are available. At the same time, there's also a lot of flexibility. With most of the programs, you can do a major and a minor combination. You can also do double majors. And at times, you can also combine two different subject areas together. So that's another thing which, students really kind of like about Canada. Now, talking about the duration of our undergrad degrees, it's 4 years for most of the Canadian universities. Yes, there's an option for you to complete 3 years and pass out with a bachelor's, a pass in bachelor's. But students usually don't do that, because even from the employment perspective, it's always preferred that you have a 4-year undergrad degree. Now, if you're looking for programs in the STEM field, like these programs usually always have come with a co-op option that my colleague was talking about. It's cooperative education. So 1 year gets added to the total duration of the undergrad degree. So mostly your programs in engineering, computer science, different streams of sciences. And it's not only in Canada just restricted to STEM. Like there are programs like psychology, different programs in liberal arts as well that would have the component of co-op. Co-op is basically a paid internship, in simpler terms, that is integrated in your program. It's the fact that it is paid and it offers you relevant work experience is one of the major attractions of the Canadian education segment. So that's about the duration of the undergrad degree. Sometimes students prefer to go in for diploma, so there the duration varies anywhere between 2 to 3 years. And that's something that a lot of students from India do after the high school.
Yeah.
Hello.
Good, good question. So we've to absolutely. So what happens is that if the country, I mean, if you're talking about UK and we're talking about India, one, if all Commonwealth countries have a system where the education systems are recognized within each other, so it's not a problem. Yes, so they do understand it's a 3-year undergrad degree, and if you are applying for a master's course in India, or even if they're applying for a master's course in the US, it has not been an issue in my experience. Yes, master's courses, you do have to understand that at times the only thing that matters is whether you have an honors course or not. So if it is a bachelor, a student is applying for a master's course and the requirement is an undergrad or a 2-1 or whatever, a honors course, then like in New Zealand, Ashish mentioned, one needs to do that extra 1 year to get the honors course. So please, when you're advising students, mention this to them, that in the future, if you are looking at a master's degree, which will require an honors undergraduate degree, you will need to do an honors course. Everything in Ireland is honors, UK, everything is honors, Canada, everything is honors. Australia and New Zealand, an extra 1 year needs to be added for you to graduate. Hello? Yeah. For you to an extra 1 year to do an honors degree. Yes. And especially courses like psychology, if you don't do the honors course, you will not get the recognition to the psychology association of that country. So you need to make sure that that honors is important. US, of course, everything is 4 years. They're plain and simple 4 years, do a Bachelor of Arts in art history or in engineering, it's 4 years. Some places the extra 1 year. So in US also, if you want to do co-op, your degree could be extended by an extra year. Yes, 4 years, because you're doing the co-op within the course. So if you take 5 co-ops, then there's certain institutions that have that, so that your undergraduate degree will increase to at least a 5-year undergraduate degree with 6 months of internships in it, which is the cooperative education. So that's about your duration. Another thing, I think UK and Ireland are the only 2 countries where medicine and law can be done as an undergraduate degree. Canada and New Zealand, sorry. Canada and US, no. New Zealand, Australia also, you can do it as an undergraduate degree, but of course, recognition is important. Getting into a medicine program is very, very tough in I think, every country, including ours. Law is easier to get into. But again, for these places, please check the eligibility of the council in India that regulates the recognition. So it's the Bar Council of India that regulates recognition. There is a document available on their website which states the courses and the universities from which their degree is recognized. And of course, the Indian Medical Association, you need to know, they have to take the NEET exam, clear the NEET exam, and then, but how difficult is it to get into medicine? Very difficult? I think it's 0.07% of the number of seats in UK that are reserved for international students. If it's more than that, then the university has to pay a fine because you're using the NHS services, which is the government services. Yeah. So medicine and law, again, be careful when you're advising, and also architecture. Make sure the architecture is recognized by the Council of Architecture in India. So the professional courses. And of course, US has a long list of institutions where the architecture is recognized by both their architecture board and the Council of Architecture in India. So there's a list available on the Council of Architecture websites. I can give you all these websites after the session, but I'll continue now. In terms of costs, so finances often make a major part in decision making. So if I can ask each one of you to tell us the approximate costs of an education and cost of living at the country, it'll be good for counselors. What is the approximate cost of an engineering degree or a Bachelor of Arts degree? Okay.
Thank you. So when it comes to New Zealand, the undergraduate degrees are approximately around 13 to 14 lakh rupees for a year, just converting from the New Zealand dollar to an Indian currency. A New Zealand dollar qualification cost would be around 31 to 33,000 New Zealand dollars approximately. And the currency exchange rate between both nations is like it's around 1 New Zealand dollar is equivalent to a 50 rupees approximately. So we are looking at around 13 to 14 lakh rupees for a year. Now, these would be for the mainstream areas of qualifications, which could be the bachelors of business, bachelors of arts, could be law, psychology, or even bachelors of science, data science, climate change, for example. But when students are looking for engineering one, those are more complex, and that could go a little higher because it involves a lot of practical component with the lab services as well. And that one could approximately cost around 17 lakh rupees for a year. And since engineering are 4-year undergrad, so it will be approximately looking at 68 lakh rupees. And all this, what I'm saying at this moment, are only the tuition fee. So the tuition fee for an undergrad course in New Zealand could be around 39 to 42 lakh rupees for an entire qualification. and engineering one could go up to 65 to 70 lakh rupees in Indian currency. Now, the cost of living at the destination is majorly aligned with the government. So the government looking at the inflation and the other factors for the ensuring the well-being of student in the country. The living expenses in New Zealand are around 20,000 New Zealand dollars for a year, which is approximately around 10 lakh rupees for a year in Indian currency. So effectively, you're looking at an investment for an undergrad student, looking at 40 lakhs towards the tuition fee and around 30 lakhs towards the living expenses for a 3 year. But with all universities in the destination, there are scholarship opportunities available. And I'm sure those scholarship opportunities have a direct correlation on what students could look at, whether this will fit into their budget, whether the parents will be comfortable to look at this as an option. So each university scholarships are very specific in nature, and they're approximately around 18 to 20% of the tuition fee. So which could vary between 5 lakhs to 10 lakhs, and some of the universities can even go up to higher as well. There's a government body in New Zealand known as Education New Zealand, which also drives the destination in the markets. And they also run the Excellence Academic Awards. So if students, if they're very good with their with their high school scores from the schools around, they can definitely apply for the Excellence Awards as well. So scholarships do work for students, and New Zealand universities are quite progressive and quite open to look at scholarships, but we are not as generous as other destinations where we don't have those 50% or 100% scholarship awards. Most of these scholarships at universities are merit and excellence based, and some of them even have bursary awards, but the range of scholarships would be around 18 to 20% of the tuition fee put together.
Namrata was very nice and told me the, the ratio currency conversion, so thank you. So in the United States, prices can range widely, and especially in terms of scholarships, but generally it's about 35 to 55 lakhs, and that's all inclusive. That includes the room and board, that includes tuition and fees and things like that. That is a general number, and it's really important to look at each institution because institutions are priced very differently from each other. Sometimes, especially with like a public institution, they can be priced wildly differently based on their location, based on their size, based on the amount of funding that they receive. All of that plays into it. Private institutions in the United States often have more ability to give scholarship aid, financial aid to especially international students. For example, there are institutions like my own that meet 100% of the demonstrated financial need of all admitted students, including international students. So when an international student is applying to these institutions, these private institutions, they submit financial forms. So for example, the International Student Financial Aid application is one that we offer. There's the CSS profile, and when a student completes that form, those forms, or the certification of finances if not applying for aid, the institution receives that information, and if they are a need-aware institution, then they can consider that in their process, and then if they are committed to meeting full need, that means that that institution will meet the difference between the cost of attendance, tuition fees, room and board, and what that student is able to pay for their education. So that's a commitment that not every school can make. Again, it's really important to look at each individual school because honestly, it is confusing. All these schools do it so differently. But at least with private institutions, that is something that is different. Whereas public institutions, which are funded by the government in the United States, they don't have the ability to give aid in the same way. They can't give that need-based financial aid, but they can sometimes offer scholarships, merit-based scholarships typically. So it is important to look at that and also to know that while maybe a public institution's sticker price, so the price that's listed as tuition, aid, room, and board, maybe that is a lower number than the sticker price of an institution that is a private school, which maybe is much more expensive looking on face value. But then with the aid process at that private institution, it might be more affordable because if that school meets full need, then they are able to support a student who has applied and gets into that school. So that's just something to keep in mind, because that is a big difference between a public institution in the United States and a private institution in the United States.
Thank you.
I'm starting to realize that New Zealand and Ireland are very similar. Uh, it's the same answer. Cost of living is about 9 to 10 lakhs. Tuition fees averages around between 13 and 15 lakhs, depending on the program. So if you're looking at an engineering program, it's going to be slightly higher than a Bachelor of Arts in something. We, again, do not offer financial aid. We have only merit-based scholarships, and a very small percentage of the tuition fees is going to be the scholarship. So for my university, for example, it's 1,500 euros, and the cost of the tuition fees is going to be around 14,000 euros. So it's very, very small if I compare it to the United States, where you're getting a 50% or 100% scholarship or a financial aid. And we do not offer any financial aid. There is a Government of Ireland scholarship, which goes up to about 10,000 euros per annum, but that's given to, I think, 5 to 7 undergraduate students, or then 4 to 5 postgraduate students, and it's highly competitive. As you can imagine, all our institutes of technology, all the international students applying there, as well as all the universities and their international students, everyone's applying for this. And that's only for India, but still the number is very, very big. So
Thank you, Soumya. So for UK, less complicated than US, definitely. And we don't offer financial aids, but there is a scope of scholarship. So typically the lab-based courses or engineering or sciences would range from £15,000 and going up to £28,000. It depends which part of England you are in. So for example, at Sheffield, our engineering and science courses range from £25,000 up to £28,000. The most expensive course can be dentistry and medicine, obviously. That can range from £36,000 for the first 2 years, going up to £45,000 for clinical years as well. And typically, most UK institutions don't offer scholarships for medicine and dentistry. We definitely don't. For non-lab-based courseworks, for example, arts, humanities, social science, they can range from 12 to £22,000. At Sheffield, these courses range from 20 to £22,000. When you do a placement year, you do not mostly have to pay the full year tuition fee. It's just an admin fee which involves the cost of using the facilities of the university. Typically, you earn money in that particular year. With regards to scholarship, you really need to start your research in advance if you're really looking for a scholarship in the UK. As I said, there is no financial aid. The scholarship can range from as small as £2,000 and can go up to 100% for very few UK universities. At Sheffield, for example, we offer 50% merit-based scholarship. You need to have an offer in order to get the scholarship. There's a separate application form. But as Soumya and Ashish mentioned, it's very, very competitive to get into. It's meritorious. It's not a need-based scholarship. And that goes for most of the UK universities. We focus more on the academics rather than the need of the student. So it also depends. A lot of the universities have automatic scholarships. If you accept the offer in time, that can range from, again, £2,000 to £5,000. There's Vice Chancellor Scholarship also, most institutions have, but they're very, very few in number. And you've got to do your research in advance, and you just have to start applying at least a year in advance if you're looking for, I'm sure that's common for everybody if you're looking to study abroad.
Thank you. So for in Canada, there's a wide variation when it comes to the tuition fee. So it would range anywhere starting from 18,000 going up to 60,000 Canadian dollars per year. On an average, we are looking at 25,000 Canadian dollars for a year, which is approximately 15 lakhs. And when it comes to living expenses, it's close to about 8 to 10,000 Canadian dollars. So we are looking at around 5 lakhs. Now, that's again the best feature of the system because the students are able to find an institution that fits their budget. So that's another thing that students come forward, like, so, that they are able to kind of like shortlist an institution, uh, and another very good feature about Canadian education is that the quality is uniform. So irrespective of wherever you're going, whichever university that you're going, be rest assured that there's not going to be any variation in the quality of education that you're going to be getting. I know the amount kind of like sounds and looks very overwhelming. And especially when we all talk to students and when they are doing the calculations, especially the parents, for 4 years, it does become like a very big amount. But like my colleagues pointed out, there are scholarships. And even in Canada, there are two types of scholarships that we offer. We have the automatic entrance scholarships, and then we also have our application-based scholarships. Again, a lot of variation in that. So the advice would be that go on the relevant university websites and check. So at York, for example, we have scholarships that start from 5,000 Canadian dollars. They go up to 45,000 Canadian dollars per year. And our average tuition fee is anywhere between 30 to 35. So you, in a way, are able to cover your tuition and take care of a part of your living expenses. So that's a little bit about how it is in Canada. And also, as an international student in Canada, you can work part-time for up to 20 hours a week, when the classes are in session, and up to 40 hours a week when the classes are not in session. So we see a lot of international students, especially from South Asia, working part-time. We don't advise just kind of like start with your part-time job opportunities right from the first year, settle down, but you would see most of them kind of like taking care of their living expenses by taking up this option.
Just forgot to mention the living expenses in the UK. So that can range from anywhere between £10,000 to £16,000, depending on your lifestyle and obviously which location you are based at in the UK. London obviously is quite expensive. For example, Sheffield is 25% more affordable than London. It's one of the most affordable places. So it depends. When the student applies for visas, obviously, there's a certain maintenance that they have to do. And like Megha mentioned, in the UK, you can also work part-time, 20 hours a week, term time, and 40 hours out of term time.
I think the part-time work is available in every country, except one restriction in the US, where if you work 20 hours, you can only work on campus as an international student. Everywhere else, I think Canada, you still have the 6 month. You can't work for the first 6 months. It's still there. It's not for the first day. Okay, so there's been a change in Canada. What I remember was, I don't really talk about part-time work at all. You're going there to study. I don't think we Indians have ever taught our kids to go out and work. We keep them in our home till they're married and have kids, and maybe even then, as mothers, we want to keep them in our home. So working for them is not something I would say, because the primary, reason for them to go overseas is to study. Do that well. Yes, if you want to earn a little bit of pocket money, you can go and do something, but that's not how you calculate your expenses. That's extra money, is what I, as a counselor, have always told my students. Now coming, I think there's a lot of, you will be always asked, can I stay back and work? Can I get a PR in the country? And I know I'm going to ask each of the panelists here to comment on that. But as a counselor, again, please say this is the rule as of today. What happens tomorrow is not something you should decide your whole education, your life and the university you go to, basis just this. So that's my advice, and that's how I counsel. But let's hear it. I think you have.
Thank you. Okay, 30 seconds. Okay, very quick one. So when it comes to destination New Zealand, it's a 3-year stay back options for all the undergrad students. So if you're picking up a course, irrespective of your field of study, you have good 3 years time to engage and pick up skills out there, and obviously get into an international experience. Uh, Part-time work has already been spoken, so 30 seconds gone, and I'll just pass it on to US.
Thank you. Yes, in the United States, I also want to mention with internships. So, if students want to do an internship that's related to their field of study, oftentimes that's supported through CPT, which is something that students will do. And so that's while they're students at our institutions, colleges, and universities. And then for post grad, there's the OPT extension. So, there's either a 1 year or 3 year if a student does STEM OPT. And so for 1 year, all students qualify for at least the 1 year, which is in any field that an international student is studying. Your work does need to be related to that field. But then when it comes to STEM OPT, which it's important to know, some institutions in the United States do count psychology and economics. For example, my institution counts psychology and economics to our STEM extension program, and that allows students to stay an additional 2 years, so a total of 3 years in the United States, working again in a field related to their STEM degree that they were awarded.
In Ireland, after your undergraduate degree, students can stay back for 1 more year and work, and that can be extended if their visa is sponsored by their company, and that usually is the case. With my university, particularly the students, they get the advantage. I think with any program, wherever you're doing an internship as a part of the program, 80% of the time you will go back and start working there. So it's usually an advantage to have, and it helps them in that 1 year.
Thanks. I think we all know that in the UK, we now have the GIR visa back, which is the post study work visa. It's called the graduate immigration route. So you can stay back for 2 years after UG and PG, and after PhD, you can stay for 3 years. So, something to note that you cannot apply for this visa repeatedly after UG, PG, or PhD. You can only avail this once. So it's good. It's worth asking your students what are their future plans, because some students are really focused and they would like to do PhDs. So it's best to take up the GIR visa after the PhD, which will be for 3 years. Just a quick note that for the degrees that where you add the placement year, you will only get the visa extended by 1 more year. This is apart from the GIR visa if you secure the placement. The university visa cell will really help you to apply for that visa. That has nothing to do with the 2 years stay back option. So just really ask your students what are their plans. It's 2 years for UG, PG, and 3 years for PhD.
So in Canada, after your university education, students are eligible for a post-grad work permit of up to 3 years. So I think I finished in 10 seconds.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think also what you need to, in the US, of course, it is the 1 year and the 2 years if you're in a STEM degree. Please make sure you check each university and write to them and ask if one of the social sciences and arts, like Grace mentioned, psychology and economics in her institution are STEM designated degrees. If you do an internship while in the summer, if it does not come under CPT, which is credit practical training, and the student will get credits for that practical training, the number of months is reduced or cut from the final OPT of 12 months. So if the student is just going in for an internship in the US and it's not CPT, then those number of years, the months are actually reduced from the 1 year OPT that they get. So be careful and mention this to your students when they are even thinking of an internship and going to the US. I think that covers it all. I will give you 30 seconds each to tell us, and we've not talked about student life. So why would you want, and what do you think makes the country different or unique, as I may say it? Please do mention if there is any kind of extra support that you see the government, any new schemes, because these are all my questions and I've not got time. Just 30 seconds again.
Thank you. I think with the destination New Zealand, we were the first ones to have a code of pastoral care for international students, which is very, very important when they arrive in the country in terms of looking at their well-being. We are also the first one to have a care of the mental well-being of students. So, and in terms of the culture, the country is very warm and welcoming. Students can absolutely feel connected with the local community, which is a very important aspect of a student journey, and one of those few countries which also ensure that the student safety is important. So we are also a second best country in the world in terms of the safety for the international students, which is very important, especially at the undergrad level, when the parents are sending them at the age of 17 or 16 and they are still, and if the student is below 18 years of age during his or her course of study, it's important for them to stay on campus at each of the New Zealand universities. And that's a very important aspect. One last point, I think, which is around intakes. If you're looking for any of your students around, then since we are part of the Southern Hemisphere, our intakes are different. Our intakes are generally Feb and July. So if you're looking to plan for any of your student applications, you need to plan 6 months well in advance. So if you're looking for a Feb start for them, you need to start reaching out to universities in around September. And if you're looking at for July, you need to start looking at in Jan. And all universities do consider the predicted scores as well. Thank you.
Okay, 30 seconds. So if you couldn't tell from everything I've said during this presentation, the United States has a lot of options, and it's so varied when it comes to how students can apply, who gets in, what credits, all that stuff. When it comes to pedagogy, very quickly, just know that there are different types of institutions that, again, teach very differently in the United States. There are public institutions where you might be in a lecture hall with 500 students, but then there are also institutions that focus on, for example, like the liberal arts and sciences, if you're familiar with those. That's only about 4% of institutions in the United States, but they often are very small, very focused institutions where you might be one of 10 in a classroom at the most, right? So it really does vary when it comes to the institutions and what your student is looking for, but it's good to know that that variation exists, because perhaps you're working with a student who wants to be at a larger R1 public research institution, that sort of thing, or maybe you're working with a student who really wants to be in a community that's small and focused and has 9-to-1 student-faculty ratio and is really intent on supporting students as individuals. And so knowing your student, knowing what they're looking for can really help as you're searching in the United States. Last thing I'll mention is that in the United States, please know that international student affairs offices are devoted to supporting our international students on our campuses. And that's everything from the I-20 process, once a student is admitted to the college or enrolls at the college, through all the different steps, CPT, OPT, the extensions, all of these complicated things. We have designated staff members on our campuses that are experts who are there to support students and help them through that process so they aren't alone. And that's regardless of if it's a small school or a very large school in the United States. So.
Like she said, she's going to time us now. So I'm just going to throw words out there: cost effective, friendly, safe. And personally, I'm a product of the UK education system, but I wish sometimes that I would have saved mom a lot of money if I'd gone to Ireland. That's it.
Yeah, same. Very uncomplicated, very multicultural. A lot of student support, safe, friendly. Really, really. Lot of activities. Student life is great. Great student support system. Pastoral support, mental well-being support. There's an extenuating circumstance support, wherein if you have going through hardships or problems, not able to submit assignments, you can actually go and talk about these things. So very, very affordable, approachable. Sheffield specifically is one of the most affordable places and been winning the Best Students Union Award from the past 10 consecutive years. So that, I think, says it all. And yeah, one of the best student destinations.
So for Canada, extremely multicultural, diverse, welcoming, one of the safest countries in the world. In terms of student life, at most of the Canadian universities, it's extremely vibrant, diverse. Students get a lot of opportunity to engage in extracurricular activities, join the various student clubs, sports, athletics, extremely popular on the campus. So yeah, I think that's it in terms of student life and, what does the country look like? 20 seconds.
Thank you all. I hope you learned something. I did learn a lot of things here. But thank you so much to the panel. Thank you all for being patient. I know we've run over time. And yes, I feel very special. It's a very special day for me because my daughter is also on the panel with me. And thank you so much.